who is the leader or the leaders of the swamp? You've been in it. You negotiate with some of these guys. Who are some of the leaders and influencers, the E.F. Huttons of the swamp?
Well, I just think it's the left. The left and all their crazy policies and how the bureaucracy seems to sort of move that way. And I guess, I always say the left seems to me the divide in America today. This is what Sarah Huckabee Sanders said this, and I totally agree with her. If you remember, she did the response to the State of the Union a year and a half ago. She did a great job. And it's a tough job because the response, you're in a room talking to a camera. The president comes into the chamber, and the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, the lights, the camera. It's a big. But she did the response, and her best line I thought was when she said, "The divide in America today is normal versus crazy." And so it seems like the whole bureaucracy's got these crazy left-wing positions, and the left just sort of reinforces it.
But faces, who are they?
It's the top people. Again, I look at look at Homeland Security. I kind of focus on the agencies that we deal with, but look at Homeland Security. They tried to set up a disinformation governance board. Mayorkas will come in front of Congress and never give us an answer to any question. And when he does, he says he doesn't know. I mean, I remember a couple years ago asking him. At the time there were so many, 40-some people, I think was the number at the time, who had come into the country who were on the terrorist watch list. And I said, what's their status? Have they been detained? Where are they detained? And he said, I don't know. I'm like, well, dude, you're the head of Homeland Security. The Homeland Security, you kind of should know if they've been detained, and if so, where are they detained at? And he had to get back with it. So it's people like Mayorkas and the key people who work in the upper parts of the Department of Homeland Security as an example. And I think the same thing applies at Justice. The top people of the Justice Department are they're the ones who run the Justice Department. And then there's just some probably people you don't know the names of.
That's who I want to know.
Career people who were there, who were working. Well, here's a good example. The Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department is going after Virginia. I talked to Glenn Youngkin the other night, because Virginia is saying we only think citizens should vote in the election. And they're saying, oh, you can't do that 90 days before an election. That violates the National Voting Registration Act. And so now Virginia has to go all the way to the Supreme Court for something that's common sense, because the Civil Rights Division and the lawyers there and the Justice Department are going after Young. They're doing the same thing in Ohio. They sent our Secretary of State a similar letter. Our Secretary of State called me 2 weeks ago, said, look, I got this letter. All these questions are asking, all to kind of intimidate, it seems to me, Secretary of States and governors who are doing the right thing. So it's those kind of folks who kind of career people, but at the top levels of that. And that's why I'm saying fire everyone you're allowed, and maybe fire some of those people to send a message.
What leverage do you have the most when you're negotiating with your peers? Like when you're sitting there and you guys are behind closed doors, cameras are not on, okay? Are there certain people that we're not getting nothing done with that guy or that gal? And then you're like, no, here's a leverage. We're going to get it done because these are the 3, 4, 5 things that we use as a lever for leverage.
The ultimate leverage is the one we're not willing to use much, is the power of the purse. I mean, that's how the founders envisioned it. Legislative branch supposed to use the power of the purse, supposed to use the appropriations process to say, hey, agency, if you're not going to give us information we need, if you're not going to do things right for the American people, sorry, you're not getting as much money as you got last time, or maybe we're going to hold your budget up until you do. I mean, that is exactly how the founders envisioned the process working. Unfortunately, what I think's happened is we've let the executive branch we're not willing to exercise that authority in the way we do. Now, you can't be crazy about it. Like, nobody wants a government shutdown, but I've argued if we're in this negotiation, if you pick one really powerful issue and stand firm on it and negotiate with the executive branch, I think you have a chance to win. You can't be saying we need these 10 things done, or we're not going to give you money for this agency, that. It gets all confusing. But if you're focused and I think surgical about it, you can use the power of the purse, and we got to do a better job of doing that.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense to me, right? Why don't they? Why don't you use it? For example, hey, we need $2.1 billion for this. No, we're not giving it to you. You see what happened? Look at Congress. We could have fixed this border a long time ago if they would have only approved that. No, but $60 billion was going to Ukraine. whatever the number was, 19 billion was going to Israel and Palestine. Only $18 billion of it was going to the border and all the other stuff. You guys were 80% of it was going to, no, but that was a border bill. Less than 15%, 18% of the money was going to the actual border. You named it a border bill, but they're able to get out there, right? Why don't you just stay tight with it? Why release that money? Why release that money to those folks?
Look, I agree with you. But you got to have the votes to do it. And there are times that
Who controls the House, though?
Well, I agree. I get it. But some of our colleagues just don't want to go there.
Who has the biggest backbone you've worked with that had the biggest brass that could say no and we're not going to compromise? Who's somebody that the other side was like, damn, we can't get nothing done through this guy?
Well, President Trump can negotiate, and we got the tax cut package done when he was there. He did just a number. We got regulatory reform. He stood firm and got his Supreme Court justices confirmed. He's been I think real tough.
Who else? But not president.
But you mean in the Congress?
Right. So Congress, Senate, somebody where you're like, they fear this guy.
Well, I think it has to be. You have to have a majority of the Republic. You got to have a majority of the Congress who's willing to stand firm on something. I argue. An example I use is from a year ago. We have these continuing resolutions. Not the way you should operate. You should just pass the appropriation bills, the individual bills. But continuing resolutions aren't all bad if you're gaining something in the process. And I argued when we were in one of these situations a year ago, going up to September 30th, the end of our fiscal year, I said, if we're going to do a continuing resolution, let's stand firm on something. Say, okay, we'll fund the government at the level you guys want. We'll do it. We won't do the individual bills. We'll fund but we want to fix the border. And we should have attached, I thought, some simple language which said, no money can be used to process or release into the country any new migrants. So just call a timeout on the asylum claims. Not a timeout on people with a legitimate visa or anything, but people coming in claiming asylum, because we know most of those people aren't legitimate claims. Let's just call a timeout on that and hold firm on that. After all, even Mayor Adams in New York was saying, we can't have millions and millions of migrants just coming into our country like the Biden and Harris administration was doing. And unfortunately, we couldn't get the votes for it. So that's how I think you play. I learned a long time ago in politics. One really good issue beats 15 pretty good issues every time. And we had a really good issue that if we're in a fight on appropriations and on spending, we should have focused on. That to me was the really good
What's
issue.
The longest government shutdown we ever had? 35-day government, the longest years.
Something like that, yeah.
1995, 1996 led to 380 federal workers furloughed and additional 420. So when we say government shutdown, who doesn't get paid? Does it go all the way down to military, Army, Air Force, National Guard? Is it everybody? Or what is government shutdown?
No, there's essential services that do get paid and aren't shut down. In the end, it's really relatively small, and you can make sure, like we could say, well, we want to fund the military, but what the left will typically do is they'll hold up the defense bill, and they'll say, we're not going to pass the defense bill until you pass all the other welfare spending.
Who's better at holding the power of purse, the left or the right?
Well, I mean, the left wants to spend money all the time, so we definitely want to spend less than what the left does. The Republicans.
But you're saying if they're using military, spending, and that's a big amount, right? We're spending military. Who's better at using that card? We're not gonna give you entitlements. We're not gonna let you spend money.
The Democrats use that
They're tighter to
every cycle. Every year they will say, because frankly, the number one responsibility of the federal government is secure the country. So we should pass that should be the first bill we pass. Do the National Defense Authorization, authorize where it needs to go, fund the Defense Department, make sure our military needs what it needs, and military families, are taken care of, and the weapon systems we need to deal with China and North Korea, Russia, everything else. Fine, pass that first, and then negotiate. But the left always says no. We're holding that up because they know Republicans. And that's central to the defense of the country. They hold that up because they want all the other. Same with the farm bill.
When I was trying to be a firefighter, I went to the fire department in Granada Hills. And I'll never forget, I walked. I didn't have a car. My car hasn't been delivered yet, the Mitsubishi Eclipse. I was waiting for it. I went knocked on the door. Hey, I'd like to be a firefighter. Really? Yeah, I just got out of the Army. I TS'd a week ago. I'd like to get a job. There's a 5-year freeze for firefighters right now in LA County. I'm like, really? Yeah. Seriously? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I thought I was going to get out. And by the way, thank God there was, because what I ended up doing was great. But if I was a firefighter, who knows? I may have retired 7 years ago from being a firefighter, not 8 years ago from being a firefighter. But why can't when's the last time you guys had a freeze? We're shutting down the border. We're not taking anybody for a year, 2 years until we figure this thing out. We're shutting down such and such department. We're not hiring anybody, a freeze for the next 2 years. When's the last time you guys had a freeze?
I can't recall. We couldn't even, think about this. We couldn't even, in one of the bills, the fund of the government, I think this is last year, we couldn't even stop the FBI money that had already been appropriated. We couldn't even claw back money that had been appropriated for a new FBI headquarters. Like, what? There's no way the American people want the FBI to get a new headquarters. The FBI that spied on President Trump, the FBI that had a memorandum in the Richmond field office that if you're a pro-life Catholic, you're an extremist. The FBI that, can't tell us who planted the pipe bombs on January 6th, who leaked the Dobbs opinion, who had cocaine at the White House. They can't tell us any of that stuff, but they need a headquarters? Like, you got to be kidding me. So some of these things are frustrating.
You're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but the last 13 and a half years, I've been working on my first fiction book to write, ever. Fiction book to write. And while I finished this book, a year ago, I got the strangest phone call about one of the characters in the book where the guy wanted to meet with me, and he read the book. And afterwards, is like, wait a minute, am I the villain in the book? This is a story about a character named Asher, who is half Armenian, half Assyrian, whose father was involved in the Iranian Revolution, linked to Savak, working with the Shah, that they escape and he gets recruited to a secret society. When you go to the secret society, it's been around for a couple thousand years. They've developed some of the craziest leaders of all time. And they test you. There's unique tests that they have at this society where they test to see your emotional mental toughness. One of the tests that they have is very rigorous. It's purely mental. Of course, there's a physical one, but one is mental and emotional. If you're Armenian, if you're Syrian, if you're Persian, this is a book you're going to be reading and saying, holy moly, this is the kind of stuff you talk about in here? Yes. If you're somebody that's fascinated by history, this is a book for you. Characters. There's a technology that this society, secret society, builds where you go into a vault. I won't spoil it for you. When you go down, they have a technology where you get to sit down and watch and have a 3-4 hour conversation with Tupac. You can set up a debate between Karl Marx and Ayn Rand. Karl Marx is in the book, who wrote Communist Manifesto. Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged, is in the book. Marilyn Monroe explains the concept of seduction and sex in the book. When you read the book, it's about development of the next leaders in the world and how they do it and how they've been doing it for many years. And it's also about how to prevent the end of civilization and how this organization goes about doing it. So, I've never written a parenting book before, but if I ever wrote a parenting book, this is the closest thing to it because it's all mindset, a lot of crazy stories. Again, 13 and a half years. Trust me, I told myself I will not publish this book until I sell my insurance company and I'm fully disconnected from it, where it's no longer my responsibility 100%. When you read this, if you're a creative person, if you like fiction books, if you enjoyed Atlas Shrugged, or if you enjoy Divergent, if you like books like that, I think you're going to enjoy reading this book. It's the creative side. Business books is very easy. Here's how you do it. Here's how this how it works. This is very creative. If you haven't placed the order yet, now you can order it on Simon & Schuster, Amazon. I'm going to put the link up below somewhere here, maybe even in my profile. Go order the book and read it. I've never written a book where I can't wait to read your reviews to see what you think about this book. So I'm going on this wild journey, and we have some plans with this book here. If you support the things that I work on, I would appreciate you going and reading the book, order the book on Amazon, and then post a review.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.